bank a little ways above the river. It would be a quiet place to camp for sure, and is just a few feet off the trail. I will say, though, as far as lean-tos on this trail go, I did find it to be one of the more underwhelming campsites of the bunch. And it's a perfectly valid option, of course, and the structure itself was in fine condition. It felt more lean-to in the woods, as opposed to lean-to at a lake or a river, in my opinion, if that makes sense. Even though it is at a river. But, that's just my opinion, which is completely meaningless. And my opinion was proven meaningless by the fact that as we walked up and around to the front of the lean-to, we saw a hammock set up, and then boom, 3 young campers sitting in the lean-to enjoying their morning coffee. But we chatted for a few minutes. They were up here from Buffalo, New York, just camping for a few days here at the lean-to. And they did assure us that the bugs would go away once the sun went down, so that was nice to hear. Since they were still waking up, and they had the lean-to, we didn't stay long, and we kept walking and figured we'd stop for a snack somewhere else. So we kept walking south and quickly crossed over a nice boardwalk just after the lean-to, and the woods here have a nice mix of many different kinds of trees. The trail so far on this section was a nice dirt path and very easy to navigate. Then 0.3 miles from the lean-to, we arrived at the Hamilton Lake stream and the super cool suspension bridge that goes across it. A cool suspension bridge over the Hamilton stream here. Wow. Looks like something you'd see on Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. Yeah, I'm going. Here we go. Over the very long, probably 50-yard bridge with a big gap here. Oh, I'm bouncing. I'm shaking. Oh, yeah. Very suspension-y. Oh, and now it's leaning me, sloping to the left into the river. All right. We made it across. That was actually quite fun. Now here comes Sarah and James. The suspension bridge had a nice slant to it, feeling like it might slide you into the river off the side, but of course it has rope handrails, and at one point the bridge was missing multiple planks, so they attached one plank going perpendicular with the others to bridge the gap, kind of acting like a footbridge over the hole on the footbridge. It's always fun crossing these suspension bridges, as you suspend 6 or 7 feet up in the air over the river, feeling the bounce up and down and the sway left to right with every single step. It's always a good time. After this crossing, we were a couple miles from the White House parking in West River Road. The bugs continued to bite. We continued to hike through the fresh, green, leaf-covered woods as the sun shined and lit up the forest all around us, following blue trail marker after blue trail marker. As we approach the White House Trail Junction, the trail is lined with small spruce trees on both sides of the trail, which is my favorite look for a trail, as I've mentioned many times. Feels like I'm walking through a little Christmas tree farm, and I love that vibe when I'm out in the woods. During the stretch from the Hamilton Lake lean-to to the White House Junction, we passed 3 other groups of hikers hiking northbound. Some were day hiking, others were through hiking, and one couple was hiking the same section we are, Northville to Piseco, but over 3 or 4 days. Therefore, in the span of the last few hours and 6 miles of the day, we passed groups who were through hiking, section hiking, day hiking, and just camping at the lean-tos. It was great to see people out enjoying this trail in every way possible, because it really is more than just a 138-mile backpacking trail. We're just about at the White House Road crossing, almost there. The trail right now is lined with little spruce trees, which is my favorite vibe, my favorite look when it comes to the trail, so I'm really into this area. About to walk over a little wooden footbridge over this stream, and so far we have now passed 3 different groups of hikers. A lot more than I've had thus far. But we made it to the White House Junction at 11 a.m., and then we came out to the West Branch Sacandaga River crossing and the brick fireplace chimney at the north end of the bridge. At this point, there is another suspension bridge as you cross the Sacandaga River, and this is the longest bridge on the entire Northville-Placid Trail, by far. It's probably 50 to 60 yards across, as it sways 7 or 8 feet above the river. So across the bridge we went, one by one, feeling that slight bounce and sway from the bridge with every step, swaying and bouncing. Definitely the biggest suspension bridge so far on this trip. So that's cool. I'm going over it now. Nice and shaky, but fun. Oh yeah. What a perfect day to be out here as I hover over the bridge, as it sways with each step. Bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. Still going. All right, we're halfway over onto a little island here in the middle of the river. And now onto the other half. By far the biggest suspension bridge on the trail. Interesting sounds as I come back to the woods here. And we are across. A little bridge with steps going down. All right, we are 25 and a half miles from Northville. Time to keep on pushing. After we all made it across this giant bridge over the West Branch Sacandaga River, we continued walking south towards Mud Lake, which was roughly 2.5 miles away, where we planned to eat lunch for the day, since that would be a good point to do so. I like to eat my lunch around the 70% mark on the day if possible. That way I know the majority of my hike is complete, and the Mud Lake lean-to made perfect sense for our stopping point today. After the Sacandaga crossing, the trail begins to gain elevation faster as the trail threads the needle between Grindstone Mountain to the west on our right and Mud Lake Mountain to the east on our left. Gaining some elevation right now as we walk between Mud Lake Mountain, which is on our left, and Grindstone Mountain, which is on our right, making our way over to Mud Lake, where we will stop at the lean-to and enjoy a nice lunch. But this is probably the first decent elevation gain of the day, which I actually like. I like the gradual elevation gain. I think it's easiest on my body. But the heart's pumping, especially with the heavy pack. It was a nice change of pace during this stretch as we gained some elevation and really got the hearts pumping, because when I'm hiking, I love a nice gradual elevation gain, even over flat trail. For me and my body, that slight elevation gain and slight climb, it's easier on my joints, so I enjoy it more. Of course, the heavy packs make it slightly more challenging, but, nothing major. As we approached the top of this climb, we came out to a flat clearing that once again felt like a scene in a movie. The clearing had a 20-foot radius and was perfectly lined with 5 or 6 giant telephone pole yellow pine trees in a perfect circle around the clearing. It felt like the type of place that you'd sit down to sing songs at if you were at a summer camp or something. Or tell spooky campfire stories around the fire. Just the perfect place, and there was even a couple downed trees that made terrific log benches in that area. It felt like a movie set. And there's a popular saying in modern society, what goes up must come down. So after gaining elevation for a while and getting nice and sweaty, it was time to go right back down and lose that elevation that we just gained as we make our way towards Mud Lake, which was about a mile away at this point, so lunch was near. This last mile to Mud Lake went fast as we were losing elevation, and it was almost break time as well. Then around 12:30 p.m. we saw the beautiful blue lake to our left, shining and shimmering as the sunlight hit the ripples. We had arrived at Mud Lake, and minutes later, we were at the lean-to. Lunchtime. We are 4 hours and 15 minutes into our day, and we have made it to the Mud Lake lean-to. Mud Lake looks fantastic. This lean-to looks like it's in very good shape. Nice fresh coat of paint. The roof is in pretty good shape. Fire pit's right in front. Faces the lake, which is down a little ways, so you have some tree cover from wind at night. This would definitely be a nice quiet campsite, but it's time for some lunch. If we can, despite the bugs, we're going to try to eat lunch. Since the bugs were so vicious while moving, they were obviously even worse once we stopped. So as we arrived at the lean-to, and the hot yet amazing sun was beating down on us, if we were going to be able to stand a chance and eat lunch, we had to cover ourselves. So I zipped my pant legs on my shorts to cover my legs, and then I put on my mid-layer coat, which I planned to wear to bed tonight. It was brutal putting that coat on too while I was so sweaty and the sun was hot and beating down on us. but it had to be done. The bugs were worse. Oh, the bugs were so much worse. I also put on my bug net at this point over my head and ate my sandwich the best I could with the bug net half over my face, just leaving my mouth exposed so I could eat. Of course, by doing this, the net was scrunched up over my eyes, so I couldn't really see very well as I ate my lunch, but it was the best that I could come up with. James also put on some other clothes and covered himself top to bottom the best he could, while Sarah walked over to the lake to explore, take photos, and just rinse off. She also said the bugs weren't nearly as bad at the water as they were at the lean-to, though at this point, I had committed to the lean-to life. I was already eating lunch, and I was there to stay. My sandwich today was a ham and provolone on an everything bagel. As we were finishing up eating our lunch, the young campers from Buffalo that we met earlier at the Hamilton Lake Stream lean-to came walking out of the woods. They were just exploring the area and enjoying a nice day hike down to Mud Lake, but they had their base camp set up at the Hamilton lean-to. They were gracious and took a photo of the three of us, and then we all went our separate ways. Forever. Who knows, but probably forever. After our nice-sized lunch break of almost an hour, it was time to get back to it. We were over 10 miles from Piseco, according to the trail sign here, and we were about 6 miles from our destination for the day of Silver Lake. Just far enough into the day where I'd want to be around lunchtime. So this was definitely the ideal lunch spot for the day. As we got ready to hike, I took off my mid-layer and threw it in my backpack, kept the pant leg zipped on, and quickly started hiking since the bugs were much worse when we weren't moving. So we started cruising. The sun was shining, and it was nice and warm. Definitely mid-70s. A delightful temperature. Now we're going back into the woods. The lake is on our left. Nice and clear today. Very quiet and calm. Nice mix around the woods. Spruce trees, hardwood trees, both big and small of each. Clearly an older forest. The trail remains nice and dry, nice and defined, and very well marked. 6 miles to Silver Lake. The woods were calm and quiet and peaceful today. We walked through a small marsh over the footbridge outside the campsite and continued circling around Mud Lake, which was on our left as we began making our way around the base of Moose Mountain up to our right, southwest of the lake. This Moose Mountain is a 2,500-footer, not to be confused with the 3,899-foot Moose Mountain in Lake Placid, the 50th tallest peak in the Adirondack Park and one of my all-time favorites. But the trail wraps around the eastern slope of this Moose Mountain as it runs along a river for a good chunk of time. So it's warm. And now after lunch I have my pants back on, which I unzipped earlier in the day to be shorts due to the nice temperature. But the bugs have put an end to that. I have a bug net on my head. My arms are exposed, but what else can I do? But it is warm. But it feels really nice because I'm pretty sick of the cold. So I'll take the warm right now. Actually, I'll just say it's hot, which I'm stoked on though. Crossing a little muddy section here, and we're over. Since the week's weather was all sun and no rain, the trail was exceptionally dry today. Even the muddy areas weren't that muddy. It was a real pleasure to hike out here this week. About an hour after lunch, a couple miles past Mud Lake and 1.3 miles north of Canary Pond, we came out to another beaver dam clearing area. Slightly smaller than the one we saw earlier today, though still quite large in size, but maybe only one football field size this time. Swampy area. You could see a couple beaver dens or beaver huts. We don't quite know what they're called, but you can see a couple of them. Actually, you can see a few of them the more you look around. Big area with some really cool old dead trees over here. This area had 4 or maybe 5 beaver dams just hanging out, spread out along the little stream. While we crossed this area, there was also 5 or 6 huge, recognizable trees standing out in the middle of this clearing. And if you've ever hiked up Baxter Mountain in Keene, the trees reminded me exactly of those very memorable trees on top of that popular little mountain. While we were here, James and Sarah were having the discussion of whether a beaver dam is actually called a beaver hut or a beaver den. I still don't know what it actually is. but beavers ruled both the area and our conversation here.